Hello everyone! Welcome once again to Brandeo Collection. Today, we're taking a look at a brand new comic books that we just added to the collection from the recent FanExpo down in Philadelphia. You're not going to want to miss these exciting new pieces we've added to our collection. Jumping right into the books that we picked up at Philadelphia FanExpo, the first book I wanted to just throw on here was a book that was an exclusive to the show, just something cool, and that is going to be a Batman book, and it is Batman number 251, which, if you know the issue for there, that is the classic issue with the Joker cover, Neil Adams cover. They did a reprint of it and one for each of the different cities that the show is going to, and this one specifically for Philadelphia. So you can see right here it says, "Look out, Philadelphia, Joker's back in town." So just a reprint of that famous Joker cover, but just specific to the city. Inside, it's the exact same story as the original 251, but nice little collectible here. They only have 500 copies per city, so I picked this one up for myself, for my brother, and my uncle. So now we have this in the collection for that show. Just something nice to add to the collection. So from there, the next thing that we got in the rest of the pile here is going to be books that I got from the different comic vendors. I'm going to start with more of the modern books and then move our way into the more classic types of material. So the first one we have here is, we've talked about it before on this channel, that I am a huge Spider-Man fan, and also my favorite comic book artist is J. Scott Campbell, so I do collect a lot of his covers, his Black Cat covers, Mary Jane covers, Spider-Man just in general, and various other things as well. So this was one that I didn't have yet, just a classic one from a few years ago, and that is going to be Black Cat number 1, and this is the variant cover for that book. So just a book from a few years ago, but one I didn't have in the collection yet, so I was able to pick this one up at one of the comic vendors. Now, other than modern books, I mostly collect, as we've talked about before, mostly collect Silver Age Marvel books. We do dabble a little bit here or there in the DC stuff, maybe some other things from there, but I rarely really collect anything modern, because I like to focus on the more vintage types of books, but there are a few exceptions, such as those J. Scott Campbell books, and I do love horror, the genre in general, so I've been really loving Stray Dogs, the series Stray Dogs. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic series that's been ongoing over the last few years, and I've been collecting the variant covers that are homages to different classic horror films. And the one that I picked up here is personally one of my all-time favorite horror films, and that is going to be The Evil Dead 2. And right now we have Stray Dogs, Dog Days, number 1 with that Evil Dead 2 homage cover. I love these covers. I think they are fantastic. They're cute with the animals on there, but they also are great at giving you that same vibe of the original posters of these classic horror films. This one is considered the virgin cover because you don't have the wording on there other than, of course, the title itself. But I do love the way that this cover looks, and it's a nice, clean copy as well. So that's going to be your other modern book. The next book is a modern book, meaning that it came out in the 2000s, right at the time of when Star Wars Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney, and things were moving more to the Disney side of Star Wars, and it's going to be a connection to one of my all-time favorite Disney Star Wars TV shows, and that is going to be Star Wars Rebels. Now, this is a book I've been looking for at a good price. It's been skyrocketing over the last few years because the hopes that those characters from the animated series do jump their way into the Mandalorian verse of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows and movies. So what we have here is Kanan the Last Padawan number 1. So I was able to grab this one at a pretty good price, considering where it's been going in the market over the last probably year to 2 years or so. So these Star Wars books are getting hotter and hotter. I personally, as much as I love Star Wars, and I have always loved Star Wars, and Star Wars will always be my number 1 all-time favorite film series, I never actually collected Star Wars comic books. It's only been recently that I've been jumping into going back and collecting and reading a lot of these Star Wars comic book series from the last few years, especially growing up. I did go in a lot and talk about and kind of read a lot about the expanded universe, but a lot of that has been kind of wiped away by Lucasfilm as being non-canon. And now reading the new books and the new comic books and going into the storylines that are being presented and then intertwined with the shows and the movies and everything from there, it's really, really great to jump in and really gain more knowledge on these characters that are showing up and intertwining between these different things. It gives you an extra level of enjoyment in these by knowing a character, going, hey, that's that character, this is that storyline that they're doing, and so forth. So it's really great to finally have this issue in my collection, so now I can represent one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters, Kanan, and the connection directly to one of my favorite Star Wars shows, which is Star Wars Rebels. So those are all of your modern pieces, going all the way up, of course, to that Star Wars book that we just talked about. The rest of the books we have here are all classic Silver Age Marvel books. So I mentioned in the beginning, but if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to our channel. What are you waiting for? We got some exciting Silver Age Marvel keys waiting right here to show you. So stuff I'm extremely excited for. Some of the, in my personal opinion, some of the best books I've ever purchased in my collection. And we're getting closer and closer to reaching some big goals that I have mentioned in previous videos. So the first book we have here is an X-Men book. And it is an X-Men book that has been climbing and climbing over the last couple years. It's always been a very sought-after book within the comic book community. But recently, because of speculation of what's going to happen within the MCU, what's going to be introduced from there, people are jumping in and really grabbing up all these X-Men keys. Not just your typical run-of-the-mill characters, not just your Wolverines or Professor X or your big ones like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, of course, they're X-Men number 4. You have, of course, your main ones that everybody knows. But then you got some of your outside X-Men characters that people are starting to speculate on, because you never know who the MCU can introduce if they ever, well, let's say when they introduce these X-Men characters. So the first one we have here is one of my favorite covers as well, and I'm happy to finally have it. And that is X-Men number 50, the classic Steranko cover of Polaris, which is actually her second appearance in comic books. The first one being X-Men 49, the one right before this. But this, of course, is the sought-after book because of this incredible cover. Look at the colors on this thing. Look at how it looks. And the wonderful thing about this book is that, well, I should say, one of the best parts about the colors is that it kind of hides some of the imperfections that this specific book has. Even the vendor that I was purchasing this from mentioned to me that around the whole edge of the book, going on the top, the bottom, on the sides of the book, there is a little bit of water damage that you can see when you actually open up the book itself. But based on just looking at the cover here in the bag and board, you could never even tell that. It presents so incredible. It looks almost like you could get in the super high grades, in the 8s and the 9s, based on just looking at the cover. But once you open it up, you can kind of see those imperfections and things that would give you a lower grade. But this looks incredible. Got it for a great deal because it's one of those things that presents well, but is actually a lower grade. So got a nice, good price for it, and excited to finally have this in my X-Men collection. So moving on to the next thing, we're jumping into my favorite character of all time, which is Spider-Man. And we're going to start with a book that is kind of an offshoot of Spider-Man, but is once again still in that Silver Age Marvel field. And this book is going to be a very low number of a series that I'm trying to get more into and collect more in the future. And that is going to be Daredevil, which, as we know, he made his introduction into the MCU in Spider-Man No Way Home, and all of those Daredevil Netflix shows and offshoots have been added to Disney+, so hopefully we're getting some news very soon on what we're going to see more of Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, as Daredevil in the MCU. So hopefully, let's see where we go from there. And this one that we got here is Daredevil number 2, which is actually the second appearance of Electro as well. So that's your connection directly to Spider-Man. So you have the second appearance of Daredevil altogether, and the second appearance altogether of Electro, which is one of the main villains of Spider-Man. And of course, both of these characters showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's actually the great connection to that as well. So it is an extremely low-grade copy, lots of water damage, lots of banged up. But the great thing is that once again, I got this as a great deal because the vendor didn't even price this out. He purchased it on his way to the show, didn't actually have time to price it out yet. So I was buying a couple other things that you will see coming up, and he gave me a great deal on this book because of that. So it's another addition to the collection. It is banged up, but it is complete, has all your pages, it's connected. So you have that. So Daredevil number 2 here. So let's get down to the last 2 items we have here today. 2 more. The first item here, before we get to the big one, is something that I personally had never actually seen in the wild before. Over the many years that I have been collecting comic books, and now it's been since about 2015, 2016 is when I seriously jumped right in and started seriously collecting books. And ever since then, I've seen thousands of books. I've seen every single type of thing that you can think of. I've seen the big heavy hitters that everybody dreams about seeing in person. I've seen all of those, but this is something that I actually had never seen before. It was very unique, and I knew I needed to add it to my Spider-Man collection. And it is this Spider-Man. It is issue number 42, but the difference is, and you'll notice it's a little different in this bag and board as well, is that it is a magazine insert. So it's a magazine insert version of Spider-Man issue number 42, which is actually the first full appearance of Mary Jane. And this tells you that story in this insert copy. Now, it is an insert. It wasn't actually connected to the magazine. And the way I can tell that is because the staples are still intact. You're able to open up and read the story in there. It's a shortened version of the story. So it's not every single page that's from that original story. That's on purpose because it's to give you a shortened version of that story from number 42. But this is super incredible. I love the uniqueness to this. I have issue 42, the actual one, in my collection already, but I needed to add this one. And I'll actually show you guys. You can see here this is the back of this issue as well. So it has this great drawing of Spider-Man with a saying there on the back. I love that. So that's just another great item to add to my Spidey collection. Have it there. We're getting closer and closer to completing the first 38 issues of Spider-Man. That's my goal, is to get Amazing Fantasy 15 all the way down to Amazing Spider-Man number 38. So that is the initial Steve Ditko run of Spider-Man. So we're getting closer and closer. We actually only have 13 issues left until that full run is complete. So we're getting there. And speaking of that, the reason why we only have 13 issues still left to complete that 38 run is because of a book coming up here. So what we have here is 2 books. I kind of lied to you. There are actually 2 more. I said there was only 2 more, but now there's only 2 more. And here you'll see 2 books that get added to that run that I was talking about. And the first one we have here starting at close to the end, and that is Amazing Spider-Man number 37. So this is actually the first appearance of Norman Osborn in the Amazing Spider-Man series. Now, the Green Goblin, of course, showed up prior to this. That was Amazing Spider-Man number 14. But this is the first appearance of the character of Norman, which eventually would become kind of merged together as the same character and revealed to be the Green Goblin. But here is number 37, another one for that 1 through 38 collection. So we have this one, just a low grade, nice copy, everything complete from there, but another one to add to that list. And now we truly have the last book that we picked up at FanExpo Philadelphia, the biggest one, the one that I was most proud of picking up. Now, this book, I'm going to tell you right now, is a rag. It is beat up. It has gone through every possible thing that a comic book could go through in its life, but it's still here. It still has all of its pages. It still has its presentation. It still exists, and it's here now in my collection, and that is all that matters. To me, it's not about having the highest grade out of everybody I know. It's not about just having the best of the absolute best. For me, it feels the best of having it exist in my collection, having a complete copy of that book, and be able to have that history represented of a character that I love and a piece that means a lot to me. And here we go. We have now officially the lowest number Spider-Man book in my entire collection, and that is Amazing Spider-Man number 5, which is the first time that Dr. Doom was fighting Spider-Man. Incredible. I love, love, love this cover. I always have, and I'm extremely happy to have this book as we get closer and closer to completing that initial Steve Ditko run. Now we're down to number 5 of the original Amazing Spider-Man run. Before this, the lowest number we had was number 7. So now we have jumped up to 5. So we got to fill in the gaps for all those other ones. Of course, those other remaining books are really up there in the stratosphere, especially after the success of No Way Home. And of course, other than Spider-Man being my personal favorite all-time character, everybody else loves him as well, even before No Way Home. So Spider-Man is Spider-Man. So it's always going to be difficult to find books in a good price for Spider-Man, even if it is a book that is beat up. I put this book down, but I'm actually going to show you guys a little bit. If you can kind of see here, the spine itself is taped, so there is some yellowing tape going up the entire spine. Then we have that classic, of course, Marvel chipping around the entire side of the book. And you have the color breaks, you have your bends, your breaks, you have all that, but I think it still presents pretty well here, as you can see on the video, as you can see what I'm holding in my hand. The book itself, like I said, is complete. You have all your pages. There is a separation between the spine and those pages, but everything's there. So I'm not missing anything. So it wouldn't be an incomplete if I decided to get this graded. But this book is such a low grade. I don't think it's worth getting graded. I'll just keep it the way it is. Have it in the collection. I'm just happy to have it in there and be able to now get closer and closer to one of my biggest comic book collecting goals that I know one day will be complete. And as we finish and we wrap up talking about these books that we bought, I'm going to keep you guys on the ride with us as we get closer and closer to completing the goal of finishing the first 38 of those Spider-Man books, as we finish other collecting goals outside of comic books. This channel is dedicated to bringing you along with us on these different journeys, on these different places, showing you tips and tricks of these different hobbies, so that way you can be informed, you can be educated, and you can go out there and collect safely, collect responsibly, and have fun. Have a good time out there building your collection and have something that you're proud of, something that hits you emotionally and is able to be there as your thing that represents you. So in those cases, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today to spend it here and go through all these books we picked up at FanExpo Philadelphia. Once again, and I'm going to hound you again for it, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell notification to be notified when we post new content. We're working on amazing new things. And like I said, we have one more video coming all about FanExpo Philadelphia that's going to talk about the celebrity autographs that we picked up at that show. So you want to stick around here on our channel for when we post that video within the next coming weeks. So thank you again for joining us. And as always, keep on collecting.